What's up, guys? Scotty2Hockey here, aka the Average Hockey Fan once again, and today I'd like to give my opinion on who I think the top 10 goalies are currently in the National Hockey League. And at number 10, I have a good goalie off a bad team from the Anaheim Ducks, John Gibson, with a career .921 save percentage and an excellent season this year despite playing on a terrible team with very little help from his defense and very little help from his special teams. Gibson tore it up this year. A lot of people said by the end of the year he'd possibly be a Vezina candidate. I even heard the hockey guy say that on his channel a lot of times, especially leading up to the All-Star break. He said, even though Anaheim don't make the playoffs, I still think Gibson's going to be a Vezina candidate. He didn't end up being nominated, but still, in my opinion, was easily one of the best goalies in the league last year, and super fun to watch. There were many games where he literally had to stand on his head to get the Anaheim Ducks the few wins they did have last year. In 58 games played, he had 26 wins, 22 losses, 8 overtime losses, a .917 save percentage, a 2.84 goals against, and 2 shutouts. And at number 9, the returning Stanley Cup champion from 2018, Braden Holtby. The returning Stanley Cup champion from 2018 may not have had a repeat performance in the playoffs this year, but he did have a very respectable regular season and is still one of the top tier NHL goalies in my opinion. I would love to see him get back to the top 5 elite Vezina winner he was years ago, but the fact is Braden Holtby is getting a little bit older and he's getting a little bit rustier between the pipes, but if you need a guy who's clutch, who can get you into the playoffs, and is a stud veteran goalie, Braden Holtby is without a doubt that guy. And in my opinion, he still deserves to be in the top 10. Even if it's at number 9, he still deserves to be in that top 10. In 59 games played, he had 32 wins, 19 losses, a .911 save percentage, a 2.82 goals against, or he had 5 overtime losses too, guys, excuse me on that one, a 2.82 goals against, and he posted 3 shutouts. And at number 8, this may surprise a lot of people, a lot of subscribers off the channel. Please don't hate me for this, but I can't be biased, and there's no denying this guy's one of the best goalies in the league. Frederik Anderson of the Toronto Maple Leafs. As much as it kills me to say it, and as much as I dislike the Toronto Maple Leafs, and despite the fact that Frederik Anderson has been eliminated from the playoffs and back-to-back first-round exits against the Boston Bruins at that, there's no denying Freddie's talent, and there's no denying he's one of the top goalies in the league. He stood on his head for the Leafs quite a few times last year and is a big part of their growth over the last 3 seasons. With solid numbers and good win-loss record year in and year out, there's no denying this guy's a top 10 NHL goalie. In 2018-2019, in 60 games played, he had 36 wins, 16 losses, 7 overtime losses, a .917 save percentage, a 2.77 goals against, and he had 1 shutout. At number 7, some people may agree with this. I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with this because he's really young. He's only played 1 season in the NHL, and there's guys on this list that had over a decade in the league of dominance. But this guy came in, was consistently good for the half season he did play for the St. Louis Blues, went down to win the Stanley Cup, absolutely tore it up in St. Louis. After years and years of St. Louis not being able to win the Stanley Cup, this guy comes in as a rookie, along with guys they signed like Ron O'Reilly, and absolutely tears it up and leads into a Stanley Cup. Jordan Bennington. After struggling through a big chunk of the first 20 games, St. Louis decided to go to their AHL affiliate and call up backup goalie Jordan Bennington. But due to this decision, they ended up making history because almost immediately Bennington came in and started competing for that starting role. Playing an amazing as a rookie and posting excellent numbers, he got the starting role and then went on to tear it up in the playoffs, leading St. Louis all the way to their first Stanley Cup. This kid looks like a stud and looks like the future in St. Louis and deserves to be in the top 10 in my opinion. In 32 games played, he had 24 wins, only 5 regulation losses, and 1 overtime loss. He has a .926 goals against and a .926 save percentage, and a 1.91 goals against. Goals against under 2. That's really good, especially with 32 games played. A goals against under 2, that is undeniably good. And he also had 5 shutouts, so he's an absolute stud for the St. Louis Blues. At number 6, another guy who may surprise some of my subscribers from the hated Boston Bruins, but there's no denying their goalie's excellent. Tuukka Rask. At number 6, Tuukka Rask. Rask once again had an excellent year for the Boston Bruins. The guy has been one of the best goalies in the league for years. He's a former Vezina winner. He had a great playoff run for Boston this year, leading them all the way to Game 7. And despite coming up short, he was still, in In my opinion, the main reason why they got to the Stanley Cup final, yes, a lot of players did play excellent, but Rask was phenomenal, posting a goals against of just over 2 at the end of it. And by the end of the series, even with losing in Game 7 and losing the Stanley Cup, he had a .934 save percentage. In 46 games played this year in the regular season, he had 27 wins, 13 losses, 5 overtime losses, and a .912 save percentage with a 2.48 goals against and 4 shutouts. Excellent season for Tuukka Rask. At number 5, I have a guy who would have been number 2 on my list. As short as 2 years ago, he would have been number 2 on my list. He led Nashville all the way to a Stanley Cup final. And then the year after that, even though they won the President's Trophy, he ended up getting benched in the first round, so it really dropped him down on my list. But there's no denying, especially in the regular season, he's one of the best goalies in the league. From the Nashville Predators, at number 5, I have Pekka Rinne. If Rinne could be better in the playoffs, there is no doubt he would be top 3 on most people's top NHL goalies list. But despite his recent blunders in the postseason and the incredible decor he's had in front of him that he hasn't been able to win a Stanley Cup with, in my opinion, he is still one of the best goalies in the league and looked incredible the past 2 years in the regular season. I have really had to state that in the regular season, because in the postseason he certainly did not. The former Vezina winner is still one of the best goalies in the game, in my opinion. In 56 games played this year, he had 30 wins, 19 losses, 4 overtime losses, a 2.42 goals against, with a .918 save percentage and 4 shutouts. Respectable numbers for Pekka Rinne for sure. At number 4, I'm not going to lie, next to Carey Price, this guy is my favorite goalie to watch. I don't think he's the best goalie next to Carey Price in the league, but I do think he's my favorite goalie to watch. If you're a casual hockey fan and they sat you down and said, there's one goalie, you got to watch all these goalies, which one do you think is the most entertaining? Which one do you think has the most entertaining style? Kind of like Dominic Hasek was back in the day, most people are going to say Marc-Andre Fleury. Very fun goalie to watch and a very elite goalie too. Although age and health have been an issue with Flurry the past few years, he is still a beast in net when he is healthy. And just like he was for Pittsburgh for a while, he is the backbone of the Vegas Golden Knights. Flurry was a workhorse this year and the year before, and once again had a phenomenal year this year. With very solid totals for a guy who played as much as he did and puts in as much work as he did, he had an excellent season, and he didn't have a good backup. And there's no denying that Marc-Andre Fleury is a top 10 goalie. Some people may not have him as a top 5 NHL goalie, but in my opinion, he's a top 5 NHL goalie. Very, very entertaining. And one thing about Fleury is his will to win. He wants to win. He will put his body in any position he can to try and get that puck. He flops all around the ice, but he knows what he's doing. He's an elite talent. In 61 games played this year for Vegas, he had 35 wins, 21 losses, 5 overtime losses, a .913 save percentage, a 2.51 goals against, and an incredible 8 shutouts. At number 3, recently traded to the Florida Panthers, formerly of the Columbus Blue Jackets, the worst kept secret in hockey that he was going to Florida, but he's a member of the Florida Panthers now, and he's probably going to help turn that franchise around a lot. Sergei Bobrovsky. Despite a mediocre first 60 game start for Columbus and their goaltending in general, Bobrovsky absolutely stood on his head in the last 20 games. Starting and playing like the league's best starting and playing like one of the league's best goalies in the last 20 games, posting a ridiculous amount of shutouts. He was a workhorse, finishing tops in the leagues in shutouts, then going on to absolutely shut down and dominate the best team in hockey in years in Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round, sweeping Tampa Bay. There's no denying Sergei Bobrovsky is an absolutely excellent talent. And I forgot to write down his totals, guys. I'm sorry about that. I forgot to write down his win-loss totals. But he is, without a doubt, a top 5 NHL goalie. And in my opinion, he's number 3. And at number 2, this is the most controversial pick by far. This is the most, maybe a lot of people, some people that aren't Montreal Canadiens fans are going to say, this guy doesn't deserve to be in the top 5 anymore. He's not what he used to be. Die-hard Montreal Canadiens fans who watch him play in and night out are going to say, this guy is the best goalie in the league. He is, without a doubt, my favorite Hab ever. He's my favorite hockey player in the NHL right now. He's such a great person. And for years and years and years, I don't care who you said, what you told me, you could argue till you were blue in the face, I was going to tell you Carey Price was the number 1 goalie in the league. There is no goalie on earth that's better than Carey Price currently, is what I would have told you. But times have changed. Carey Price did have a very rough 2017, 2018. He had kind of a shaky start in 2018, 2019. And as much as I have absolute love for Carey, he's the one Habs jersey I do own. It's a Carey Price jersey. I had to make him number 2 on my list because the guy who's number 1 on my list right now, despite his blunder in the playoffs this year, it's undeniable he's the future in the NHL. And I do think Carey Price could reclaim that number 1 spot. He could have a phenomenal season this year, go on to win the Vezina. God only knows what he could do in the playoffs if he gets on a good run. But I couldn't put him at number 1. I had to put him at number 2. Carey Price, as much as I love Carey Price, and I will state it right now, that by far and away he is my favorite Hab of all time, the times of him automatically being considered the world's best, in my opinion, have changed a bit over the past few years for sure. When 100% healthy and with a decent defensive core in front of him, it's undeniable he's the best guy if you want to win a game. But after a few injuries the last few seasons, a shaky first half of the season this year, I feel like it's time for Price to finally slip to number 2 on the list. It kills me to say it, but now he redeemed himself at the end of the year, and I do believe he could turn it all around and end up being the number 1 goalie again. He did kind of have a few rough starts on the end of the season, but he started most of the last 20 games, and after the All-Star break, he was just phenomenal. He ended up finishing with 35 wins in 66 games played. He only had 24 losses, 6 overtime losses, a .918 save percentage, a huge jump from the year before, and a 2.49 goals against with 4 shutouts. Carey Price at number 2. Kills me to say it, guys. And at number 1, no denying it, Andrei Vasilevskiy, 24 years old from the Tampa Bay Lightning. Last year's runner-up and this year's Vezina winner, it's undeniable right now that Andrei Vasilevskiy is the best young goalie in the league. Last year, he was excellent in both the postseason and regular season, but this year, despite posting historic numbers in Tampa Bay, he crumbled in round 1 to a dominant Columbus team. But this wasn't all on Vasilevskiy. A lot of the rest of the team fell apart too. This wasn't on Vasilevskiy. He had a rough year, but at the end of the year, he still had excellent totals. With 53 games played, he had 39 wins, 10 losses, 4 overtime losses, a .925 save percentage, a 2.40 goals against, and 6 shutouts. And Tampa Bay had an historic year with over 60 wins. So Andrei Vasilevskiy, kills me to say it, but just above Carey Price, he's my number 1 goalie. I kind of rushed through Vasilevskiy because it gives me anxiety even picking him as number 1. So let me know what you think, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Of course, have a great day. Over and out.